Today I would like to educate you about the ongoing activity between the NBA players and its owners in hopes of having a 2011-2012 basketball season. Currently, the NBA is undergoing a lockout. The 2011 NBA lockout is the fourth in history of the National Basketball Association. It began on July 1st and it will remain in effect until the National Basketball Players Association, which is the NBA's union, the players' union basically, reaches a deal with the NBA's owners. During the lockout, teams cannot trade, sign, or contact players. And players cannot access the NBA facilities, trainers, or staff. After the previous lockout, which shortened the 1998-1999 seasons to 50 games, they came to an agreement. The deal lasted 6 years, until June 30th of 2011. Negotiations began early, and the league claimed they were losing $300 million and proposed to reduce the player's salary by 40%, which equaled out to about $800 million. And they wanted to institute a hard salary cap at $45 million per team, as opposed to the soft cap they currently have in use, which is at $58 million. With the time winding down, negotiations continued through May and June. The newest proposal on the salary cap by the owners called for a system which they called the flex cap, which limits payrolls at $62 million a year per team, and it penalizes the team if the average payroll exceeds that amount. On salary reduction, players offered to cut $500 million over the next 5 years, including reducing revenue from 57% down to 54%, and the owners instead proposed to cut $2 billion annually in salary over the next 10 years. As a last-ditch effort to avoid the lockout, players and owners met again on the 30th of June 2011 to negotiate. Both sides failed to reach a resolution on key issues like salary cap and revenue splits. NBA Commissioner David Stern said that the two sides remained far apart from reaching an agreement. The owners demanded a larger share, claiming they are losing money. The players, on the other hand, were willing to make reductions, but they refused to completely cave in to the owners' demands. The negotiations broke off and the lockout officially started. Negotiations resumed again on August 1st, which was the first time meeting since the lockout, and no progress was made after 3 hours of discussion. The next day, the NBA filed 2 unfair labor practice claims against the NBPA, accusing the players of being uncooperative in negotiations by making threats to dissolve their union and to file antitrust lawsuits. Comments were made by the NBA owners, David Stern and Billy Hunter, that the 2011 and 2012 season was likely to be canceled. The National Basketball Players Association and its owners returned to negotiate for the second time on the 31st of August with a sense of urgency. Union president and Los Angeles Laker Derek Fisher stated, "Everyone loses if we don't reach an agreement." That's something that I think has always been understood. The salary cap structure remained the main source of the disagreement. Owners wanted to create a hard cap for team payroll, and the union wanted to keep the current structure intact. Players were willing to cut salary if owners agreed to compromise on the salary cap, but owners were unwilling to compromise, and they said that there must be a system in place that allows all teams to compete. On September 15th, Derek Fisher sent out an email to over 400 players asking for their unity. In the email, he described the meetings as effective. He suggested that the failure of having a deal was not due to the disagreement between the owners and players, but between the owners and other owners. On September 23rd, the NBA formally began to cancel league activities. Training camp and the first week of preseason games were canceled. Sources began to leak that Stern planned to threaten the cancellation of the entire season if a deal was not made. The union saw this as a scare tactic rather than a serious threat. A meeting was held September 30th, and it was described as tense. Dwayne Wade reportedly yelled at Stern after he pointed his finger at Wade. The players nearly stormed out. Stern backed down from his earlier threat that would cancel the entire rest of the season. On October 4th, which was only a couple days ago, the NBA cancel the remainder of the preseason. Stern said the league would lose $200 million from canceling the preseason, while also warning the first 2 weeks of regular season could be canceled as well. If a deal was not reached by October 10th, the players proposed that they receive 53% of basketball-related income, or BRI, while the owners countered with 47%. They then discussed a 50-50 split, where the owners offered the players 49% with some incentives that would raise the value of 51%. Then the players countered, asking for 51%, which would increase to 53% with the same incentives. And the owners rejected it. To conclude, this is the most recent of discussion about the lockout and where the owners and players of the NBA stand today. Hopefully both parties continue to meet and negotiate a contract so our Los Angeles Lakers can get that 17th NBA title.
All right, so Teresa, what did you think?
Teresa's not here.
Not here. All right. N.A. Well, give me just a second, and I'll have some comments for you.
Got it.
All right, Ryan, there's a lot of stuff in the speech that I liked a lot. I thought that you did a good job on, but there are also a few things that are problematic. You've got a lot of information about what's going on. You put it in a historical context. It's not that complicated to follow. Everything is basically a chronological narrative. I think it would work better if you structured it a little bit in chronology into segments. In other words, prior to the negotiations opening, maybe around the first threat of the cancellation of the season, and then update us most recently. Otherwise, it just sounds like it's one long story kind of running through all of the data, and I think that that can be a little overwhelming. I thought you had good data for the most part. Quotes from Stern and Fisher, for instance, are cited pretty effectively. Some of the other data is not cited, but it sounds, I don't doubt that it's true, but you do want to tell us where you got it. There was one place that was a little confusing, though. You mentioned, for instance, that their previous agreement in 1998 was scheduled to last 6 years, and here it's expired in 2011. I'm not a whiz at math, but that's a hell of a lot more than 6 years. So something went on in that time that is not clear, or else you have the number that's not right. The first picture of Stern I didn't think helped you very much, except maybe as a transition point. If you were more clearly structured, that would make more sense. The second one was Stern and who was it? I wrote it down. Dwayne Wade. I thought that was interesting, kind of highlighting the confrontation between them, and I thought you did a nice job with that. Mostly the pictures that you show develop interest, remind us of content that's going on. It's not adding a lot to our understanding. One of the things that's problematic is when you are comparing what the different offers are, it's often a bunch of numbers, and it's hard for people to keep track of that. There's a perfect example for a table chart, for instance, to show here's what the owners are offering, here's what the players are looking for, here's what we had, here's what's going to be different about it, so we could get that visual contrast. And I think that's the one thing in the visuals that was missing. You tell the story pretty well. You're reading a lot. I know that you're reading because you've got a lot of information in the presentation. Occasionally, I think there are some nice bits in business in there that make it a little bit more personable. I like the exit line, for instance. I thought that was kind of fun, although I don't really care about the Lakers. All right, there you go. Thank you.